Today I'm going to chat a little bit about hospice care. And I had a chance to work with Mel and his family for these past several months. I want to welcome you today, and thank you for coming to support Marlene and her family. We gathered because I think probably each one of us was touched by Mel. And we gathered to remember and to celebrate his life. And hopefully, that can help ease some of the pain you feel of his loss, and kind of help you begin the whole grieving process. I wanted to start by sharing with you some of the memories that I have with Mel. I met him first back in the 3rd of May. We talked about his work on the railroad. I'd worked on the railroad, my dad, uncles, a lot of history of the railroads. We had that in common. He talked about managing some buildings for his brother at one time after the railroad. So we talked about that. And we did a lot of talking about riding motorcycles because we had that in common. And he said, at the end of that first visit, he said, I've lived a full life. So he was already kind of thinking about what was happening to him and moving on. He came back a few weeks later in the end of May, and he said, I've got faith. I know where I'm going. And so as a chaplain, I found it very comforting that he knew. He was calm, and we talked about his time at the YMCA. And you ever want to do that song when you hear the YMCA? Yeah, so I did it. But he said he missed talking to his friends there. Not the working out part. I don't know why I never thought of that. I'd go to Planet Fitness where I belong and just hang out and talk with people. He said he'd been working on a to-do list, trying to get his house in order. So he kind of had the sense that he knew things were moving along. We went kind of more sporadic after that. He said, if I need something, Tim, I'll call you. I said, well, if I feel a little lonely when I stay out in the garage, I'll call you. So it was a few months later, back in July, it came out. He said, my cancer is spreading, but I'm not afraid. Because he knew where he was going. We're back in the garage. The Honda was there. So we're talking Hondas. I have a Honda. He wanted to get on and ride it. I said, I just don't think my work would like that. I was out riding a motorcycle, I crashed it or something. He loved his Honda, huh? Went on a little bit longer, came back in August, out in the garage, and we just did guy talk this time. We just talked about the Honda. I came back September 27th, and he was in bed at that time. A little bit different tone. We talked about his loss of control. And I don't know if when you work with folks who get towards the end, the worst thing isn't always the illness, it's the loss of control. And but he wasn't, he did it gracefully. And you kind of saw him at that part. Graceful man, easy man to talk to. He said he felt his time was close. I said, do you have any concerns? He had some dreams that were a little troubling. We talked about those. I think we resolved that. And we didn't talk about his Honda. So that was, I think, the first time I met with him. We didn't talk about the Honda. And I kind of thought to myself, I wonder if it's not getting pretty close. And it was. I talked to Dan about doing some of the things with the service this afternoon. We decided to read a couple passages. He's going to read a couple. And when I picked these two passages, what I had in mind is when he said, I have faith and I know where I'm going. So if you kind of listen to these two, there's the Honda. I walked in, didn't even see the Honda. That's what happens when you come to the last moment. I couldn't find a passage that had Honda in it. But I did find some that talk about, I know where I'm going. Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. And someday, I'll dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And that's the verse. He knew where he's going. House of the Lord. And then John 14 says, and this is Jesus talking to his disciples as he's getting ready to die. And he says, do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God. Trust also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you. I am going there to prepare one for you. And some of the translations say in my Father's house are many mansions. Maybe you're a little more familiar with that. He says, if I go and prepare one for you, I will come back and take you to be with me so that you may be where I am. You know the way, the place that I'm going. And Thomas said, Lord, we don't know where you're going, so how can we know the way? And then Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So again, he said, I know where I'm going. To a place already prepared in heaven that Jesus has talked about. I know we'd rather have our loved one with us, but we'd not rather have them suffer and lose all control. And so we know he's gone there, and we know that he found his way. I believe we see loved ones. I believe we see our Lord. I believe we're peace in eternity. And I believe our loved ones wait for us. And when it's our turn, they greet us at the peace. So he knew where he's going. He found his way. I hope that gives you some comfort today.
Let us pray. You brought us to birth, and in whose arms we die. In our grief and shock, contain and comfort us. Embrace us with your love. Give us hope in our confusion, and grace to let go into a new life. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. I am Dan Christensen. I'm on the staff here at the funeral home, and I'm also a certified celebrant. I lived in the same complex as Melvin. Through the years, we had lots of discussions, lots of talks, lots of laughs. And I'll share some of those with you as we move on. I'd like to read a passage from the book of Revelation. It says, I saw a new heaven and a new earth. The former heaven and the former earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. I saw the holy city, a new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, as a bride prepared to meet her husband. I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, Behold, God's dwelling is with the human race, but will dwell with the human family and always be their God. They in turn shall be God's people. God will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there shall be no more death or mourning, wailing or pain. For the older had passed away. Behold, I make all things new. This is the word of the Lord. We gather today to remember the little things that made a special place in our hearts with Mel. To remember those happy times when we laughed. And those times when our hearts were broken as one. For who could put a price on memory? We gather here to share the pain. To hurt when you hurt without presuming that our pain is the same. To cry when you cry and not to hide or avoid the tears. For who can ever take away the pain? We gather to give the gift of grief. To stand beside you in silence and not to be uncomfortable with your tears. To allow your gift of mourning this loss and not to lose patience. For grief is God's way of healing a broken heart. At this time, I'm going to just read a few sentences that Marlene wrote and that the two daughters wrote. And then I'm going to ask Doug to come up and give some of his reflections with his dad. So, Martin, I'm not going to paraphrase this. I'm going to read it exactly the way it was written. The other night when I was there, Marlene wrote, "I am happy and feel loved for all of our years, and I miss him terribly, a good man with a good heart." Renee can't be with us today, wrote this, "In memory of my pops. I remember one time when I was very young. Pops was riding his motorcycle, and someone opened the door. It happened to be the driver's door, and Pops and his motorcycle crashed, hit the driver's door, and my Pops flew over his motorcycle and landed on his head. The only thing that saved my Pops was his helmet. I still tell this story to everyone I know, and that's why I love my Pops and will always love him. Love, your daughter, Renee." Sharon's memories are this. Dad and I would ride his cycle out to Grandma Adeline's home. We would have cookies and coffee on Saturday morning. After staying for 2 hours, we would ride around the neighborhood. Grandma would cover my ears with a scarf, telling me, "Keep the wind out of your ears, my dear." We would also go to the Milwaukee Railroad Credit Union later on a Saturday morning, and he would pick me up in all my little frilly and pretty dresses and place me on the counter. I remember the lady that worked there was called Irene, and she would show me the cash drawer when Dad cashed his checks. Funny how I became a supervisor and an accountant in the banking industry. I owed all the Pops. I'd like to thank him for the way he loved me even when I messed up. I love him very much. I could feel it because he brought home guinea pigs, dogs, cats, hamsters, and even a baby skunk that we call Petunia. I can only imagine that. We had fun raising all these animals, including a German Shepherd that was very special too. We all loved Duke. Thank you, Pops, for loving me and my artwork. Every time I created something, whether it was on a sewing machine or with yarn or my drawings, he loved and appreciated all. Thank you, Pops. Doug, this time I'd like you to come forward and say a few words.
Thank you, Dan. I don't have anything scripted, and I think everybody knows me here. So many things, like what Sharon had just mentioned, that makes my dad so special, was the freedom that he loved you just for the way that you were. All of his kids were completely different from each other. One of my dad's best friends used to call me tear-ass. Remember that, Jenny?
Yeah.
Leroy? Yeah. They're sitting right in the back there. He still calls me tear-ass. There's a reason for that, because I would never sit still. And one thing that my dad always had encouraged with me is to always be busy and always be creative. And he let me have free reign with all the stuff in the garage. So I used up a lot of spray paint. I used a lot of his tools. And I discovered that spray cans of ether with a big lighter made an enormous flame. A lot of fun like that. And my buddy and I, we used to play tennis across the street with gasoline on tennis balls, and they were on fire. So, not a pyro, really, but just a lot of fun things that my dad, when he heard about that, he just kind of went the other way. He's like, don't do it. You know, and didn't punish me. But my dad always loved pets, like Sharon had written in there. When he would come to visit our house, we live in Phoenix, we have a little dog, his name's Mojo. And my dad would just sit there and pet him. And Mojo would just sit and enjoy all that stuff. I promise I wasn't going to break down here, but I have a dog, Nika, which is a great big bulldog. And my dog absolutely adores older people, and she just would gravitate towards my dad all the time. And anytime that my dad was there, or my sister Renee, Renee was always afraid of dogs, and Nika got her to be not afraid of a dog. And I think it was predominantly because of my dad being so gentle with animals like that. He taught her to accept something that was very intimidating, and that's what he taught me, is never be intimidated. I'm not afraid of anything, and I'm not afraid of death. And that's one thing that we all are going to face. One of the things that, as I watched my dad's health deteriorate, it was really difficult for me because I could see how much of a struggle it was for him to take care of things. Yet, Andrew and Amanda's wedding, I had to help my dad go to the restroom. Stuff like that, it's hard to watch. But my dad really, he sucked it up, and he was strong, and he did everything that he could possibly do to just carry on, not have people feel sorry for him. I don't remember how many months back, but my dad called me up and he said, I was out on a scooter today. I'm thinking, oh, Jesus. He's barely able to walk with his cane, but yet he's out riding his scooter. And I just thought of it as, well, Pops, if you crash, at least you're going out and doing something you love. Right? That's how I always look at it. Because I'm a biker too. I don't have one right now. It's been too hot in Arizona. But Pops gave me his scooter, so I guess I'm going to be back on the road again, so look out. Whenever I would ride next to my dad, I would typically wear out twice as many tires as he would, because I like going fast. He likes going slow, and he's always like, where are you going so fast? And Pops, I've got too much stuff to do. I've got a life to live. Let's go. Let's do it fast. So there's a lot of things that we did the same, and a lot of things that I would watch him and he would do different for me, and I would decide that I'm going to live my life as full as I could, because I saw my dad take calculated risks oftentimes, and that helped kind of tone my personality, I think, in some ways. And now I have my wife Diane, helps me carry that on. I'm grateful for my dad, how accepting he has been for the past relationships they've had. The family that I've got now, I've got 2 amazing stepdaughters. I've got 2 amazing sons, and my baby girl, Hannah. Come up here, Hannah. My little sweetie here was my dad's favorite all the time. She'd sit on his lap all the time. I mean, he was just the happiest grandpa. So I just wanted to, kind of bring back some memories. What were some of the goofy things that we talked about on the way in here that made us laugh so hard?
I think one of the best memories, actually not memories, it's actually a joke he always used to tell me was that his teeth were like stars because they came out at night. And if you don't get that, it's because he has dentures. And he would always tell me that joke, and there was never a time where I didn't laugh at it. And I will never forget my grandpa and the way he impacted me. He was a great person. Thank you.
Well, you're sweet. So, you want to sit down? She was nervous about coming up. But some of the people I really want to thank through the course of everything that's been going on with my pops with his health. My sister and my mom have had a lot to take care of him. It's not been easy. My neighbors, and I say my neighbors because about 10 years old, maybe, I bought a condo in the condo project that my mom still lives in now. Bought a condo there, and my parents loved it so much, they wondered if there was a place in our project available, and of course the one below me was available, so they bought it down below me. Which, at first we thought might be a little awkward, but then, as it turned out, when my kids were over with me, they could just run downstairs, go from one garage to the next garage, and invite grandma and grandpa. So if they wanted breakfast right away or something like that, it was just absolutely wonderful that they could share their childhood like that. So I'm very grateful for that. Several years later, I'm sure I probably broke my dad's heart when I told him that I'm moving. That was hard. But the saving grace is all of my parents' neighbors. Many of you are here. Stand up, all you neighbors. Come on. Look at this, all the neighbors. We have Paul, my buddy Paul, Barbara, Mary, Dan. All these guys, they looked after my parents all the time. And they'll look after Mom. Because there's going to be a lot of struggle and challenges coming forward, Mom. It's not going to be easy. But you know, you got all of us. You got all these people here. Everybody's going to be looking after you. So the things that I remember most about my pops are, you know, what everybody has in their childhood memories, things that their parents teach them, and things you should do and shouldn't do. And when my dad would say you shouldn't do that, I would do the opposite, of course, like some of you would do too. It makes life more interesting. And you know, Lindsay's nodding her head too. You know, well, there's many times we raise our kids and we try to do the right things for them, and we go the opposite direction, and sometimes they come back around, and you're forever grateful for that. So my pops lived a very, very eventful life, and I think a very happy life too. So if you see me walking around here and smiling, and I'm enjoying everybody's company, it's because you know, some people that come to a funeral and they're sad because this person passed away. I'm happy, not that my pops passed away, but I'm happy he had a great life. And to see him suffer the way that he has, and especially the past month, it sucks. Cancer just sucks. He died of cancer. It started with his lungs. Most likely not from smoking, even though he smoked for years and years. And I hated it. I remember going to school. My dad would smoke a pipe. I'd go to school thinking I smelled okay. And then something about it that I'd stay at somebody else's house and then I'd smell my clothes like, oh God, what is that? And I'd come back home and say, it's a pipe. Disgusting. So finally my dad quit smoking. Still chewed tobacco right up until his end when he was conscious. But unfortunately, it's cancer went from his lungs to his bones, and it's an awful, awful situation because it took him very quickly just in the last couple of weeks. Because Andrew and Amanda's wedding, we have video footage of this, Pops dancing with several women, which is not uncommon. My mom will attest to that. Leave my dad alone at the YMCA, and there's a table full of women that will come and talk to him. And I know there's some of the women that are in here from the YMCA. You're all culprits of that. But that's one thing. It was very easy for my dad to make friends, which was really super cool, and I think I picked that up from him. Because I don't have a problem meeting new people. Some of you coming in, I don't know who you are, so I'll introduce myself to you. Or you know what I'm talking about. But that's how my dad was. It was very comfortable for him to get into situations and make everybody else feel at home. One of the things that I remember Sharon had mentioned with my grandma, that we would hop on after she was getting too old for that, horsing around like that, he'd put me on the back of the motorcycle or take me in a car ride and go visit grandma. After a while, I really didn't like the whole routine of going to grandma's, have some, dried out pastry, and then grandma and grandpa drinking coffee, or my dad and grandma drinking coffee, and then I go home and everything like this, and I go back to my day of, terrace and start building a fire. But I look back on those days of taking care of our relatives and being kind to people who are kind of closed in, like my grandma was. And where's David? David used to live here. David's dad, Bill, used to live above my grandma. And he oftentimes would take care of grandma, right, David?
Absolutely.
So, in David's family, one of Bill's daughters, Rosemary, I am very grateful. Where's Rosemary? Rosemary over there was with my dad right when he passed away. And Rosemary, I am so grateful that he wasn't alone. So, I guess I probably should close because I told you to go on further. I'm used to doing stuff like this. I used to do seminars and everything and talk about planning for death and everything like that. So, my thought is that as you have people that you know are alone, as my wonderful neighbors, stop by and visit Mom every now and then, because she's gonna miss Pop. She's gonna miss having a company. So don't be strangers, all you. I expect that when I leave to go to Phoenix, that I hear from Mom that, oh, so-and-so stopped, Dick Mack stopped over. You know, all these old friends. That's one thing that my dad always loved. And it was something I never quite understood. Like, he would open up his garage door, put a lawn chair in the garage, and he has this spectacular view that Mary, and Barbara, they all have the same view of this wonderful field in the back of their house, all the wildlife you can imagine. And he'd sit in the garage and he'd look at everybody else's garages and the cars that are driving by. I'm like, Pops, what the heck? I had other words for that, but we're going PG. But why are you sitting in the garage? And he's like, there, it's a nice community. And I always admired that about Pops, is that he could just sit outside there and everybody kind of gravitates. The garage door opens, all of a sudden there's 2 people, 3 people, 5 people. You experience that too, right?
He knew everybody that went by. He would tell me that's so-and-so, that's so-and-so.
Yeah. And everybody knew him. Hey, how are you doing? So it's a good life. So don't be sad that we lost them. We had him for, a pretty short period of time, I guess, in some respects. But he's brought a lot of wonderful memories for a lot of us. And for that, I'll be forever grateful, Pops. And I have to say thanks again to your facility here. I think my dad absolutely looks peaceful, and he looks absolutely wonderful. Sometimes you see somebody who passed away and it's just, all you can see is how badly they've deteriorated. And I think my dad looks great, and I'm very grateful. So, to that end, I'd like to say thank you for everybody coming today, because this is not the easiest thing to do. Obviously, I come from Phoenix, and a day like this here in Wisconsin probably comes once every 10 days. So thank you for spending your afternoon with us, celebrating my dad's life. Again, we've got some announcements of what we're going to do after this.
We're not done yet.
Oh, we're not done yet. Okay. You mean I can talk more?
No, you're done.
Thank you, everybody. Honestly, I can't say enough how much I appreciate the showing of all of his friends and family, my mom's friends and family too. It's been a really, really cool afternoon. And Mom, you doing okay? Yeah. And I think my mom's doing really good because she does have all this support. So, once again, thank you, everybody. All right, Dan.
Sure?
Yeah.
Say a few words. I guess I should have put a number on those words. And I can attest to the kick-ass, because when he lived in the complex, I always knew when that guy was leaving, because that motorcycle would, out in the parking lot. And my condo faces Martin Road, and on his way home because I could hear him going through that intersection of Janesville and Martin. And he kind of downshifted and said, yep, Doug's home. So we miss him too, and enjoyed his company while he was there. And I'll have more to say to that. I want to read a little saying before I'm going to say this. Stuff that I was told that I should kind of say. Doug and Marlene were married 62 years. 62 wonderful years.
Mel and Marlene. Mel and Marlene.
Mel and Marlene, yes. I'm still getting over your
I'm going to keep it straight. Do I need to come back up?
No. I think I'll give a benediction they met when they were 16 years old. Nell went to junior high school, and I can attest that he and I talked a lot about cars and motorcycles because at one time I was an avid Indian motorcycle rider, so we talked about that. He worked for the Milwaukee Road Railroad for over 30 years. He worked at Fairview Mausoleum for 30 years. And he and I had a strong background because he would call me Digger Dan because I'm a funeral director, and I called him Mel the Crypt Keeper. And that was our kind of word. I'd come by and I'd say, it's a Crypt Keeper Mel going down the road. And he'd say, Digger Dan, be quiet. He loved to watch TV programs, the Learning Channel, the Discovery Channel, the History Channel. He always was looking for things. But I think, now I can think that maybe we were soulmates because he loved bakery, and I can attest to that. It really wasn't proud or favorable of eating vegetables. Mel and I got to know each other right after he moved in. Like you said, his garage door was always open. I'd kind of walk by and he'd say, hey, stop and sit a minute. I could not get by. And he'd see me through that little park. He'd see me getting the mail. If I looked over there, I'd have one of these. Come on over and sit a spell. And I would. And we talked, like I said, about cars, motorcycles. Growing up as I did in the 50s and 60s with the muscle cars and the motorcycles. We just had kind of a bond. Probably one of the hardest things I had when I came home one day, said, Nell's looking for me. I said, oh, he is. So I went to the house and sat down. He said, Dan, sit down. He sat down next to me. He said, it's time. And we need to talk about my funeral arrangements. So I said, all right, let me go get some things. And came back a few days later, and we went through the whole process. And he said, one thing you have to promise me, that Honda is going to be next to me in the chapel. And I said, wow, that's a big order. There's fire codes, there's all kinds of codes. And I said, how am I going to get that through the owners of the funeral home? He said, you'll do it. So here it is, great Honda. I noticed him writing it. He had the biggest smile on his face. You know, he just believed I could see that through the shield of his helmet. Then as time went on, the Honda was parked. There was a cane that he was using. Then it was a walker. Then it was his electric scooter. And across from the complex, they put in not a sidewalk in the country, we call them walking paths. And they asphalted that, and guess who's going up and down that walking path like crazy? And I'd see this streak, and I'd say, oh, Mel must be out. And he'd go down to the corner and go up and down Jacob Road, and he'd come back, and he just had this biggest smile on his face. Then I didn't see him for a while, and then I saw an ambulance. And so I found out he was in the hospital. So I went and saw him. I don't know if he knew what it was. going to read that one. Has to do about the train of life. And I thought this was appropriate for someone who worked on the railroad. At birth, we board the train of life and we meet our parents. And we believe that they would always travel by our side. However, at some station, our parents would step down from the train, leaving us on our own life's journey. As time goes by, some significant people will board our train. Siblings, other children, friends, and even the love of our life. Many will step down and leave a permanent vacuum. Others will go on unnoticed, that we wouldn't realize that someday their seats were vacant. This train ride has been a mixture of joy, sorrow, fantasy, expectations, hellos, goodbyes, and farewells. A successful journey consists of having a good relationship with all the passengers, requiring that we give the best of ourselves. The mystery that prevails is that we do not know at what station we will step down. Thus, we must try to travel along the tracks of life the best way we can, loving, forgiving, and when the time comes for us to step down and leave our seat empty, we would leave behind beautiful memories for those who continue to travel on the train of life.
Just to say a few words of the committal, because it's going to be a private committal, I believe on Friday. So I'm going to do just a short committal ceremony for those of us who are here today. So we turn our thoughts now to commit Mel to his final resting place. In Ecclesiastes it says, there is a time for everything, a season for every activity under heaven. There's a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot. There's a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to tear down, a time to build, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, a time to dance, a time to scatter stones, a time to gather them in, a time to embrace, a time to refrain, a time to search, a time to give up, a time to keep, a time to throw away, a time to tear, a time to mend. There's a time to be silent, a time to speak, a time to love, a time to hate, a time for war, a time for peace. And this afternoon, it's time for us to lay Mel's body to rest and release him into God's eternal care. So we commend you, dear brother, to Almighty God, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, and dust to dust. May you rest in peace. I'd like to ask you to join me in a prayer. Father in heaven, we commit our loved one, Mel, to you. I want to thank you for blessing us with his life, with his presence, with the love for his family and friends. We give you thanks for all those fond memories we have of him. I ask you to be with this family now in this time of loss and sorrow, and extended family and friends and neighbors who have felt his presence and his love. Help them too as they adjust to his being gone. I ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen. I read an author a few years back. His name is Tom Zula. He lost a wife, a couple of children, and I thought he had some kind of wise words for us. He said, I learned to look at death differently. He said, I choose to say I'm blessed to have had them in my life. And what I heard today is, I think everybody here has been blessed to have known Mel. I'm better to have had them, even if it seemed like it ended too soon. I've also heard that the time that you had with husband, with dad, with grandpa, neighbor, with friend. You're better for having known him. On the one hand, we have sorrow, and that's not going to go away. On the other hand, we have all these great memories. And I hope that balances things out a little bit for them. Because we're not just left with sorrow. We're left with the impact they had on each one. So I hope you take that. And don't be afraid to talk about it. As I listen to people, talk here, and I see some of the reactions, difficult at first to kind of remember. But as time has gone on in the service, I think it's gotten easier because memories ease that burden and it reminds us his illnesses wasn't just his life, the sum of his life. The sum of his life as well. His family, his friends, his neighbors, how he impacted us. And we're blessed for that. So, again, thank you for coming and sharing and giving your support today.
Again, on behalf of the family, we thank you for attending this service for Mel. May we cherish his memories forever. This time, you're all invited to reconvene down at Maddie's Bar and Grill, 14460 with College Avenue. You go actually north of the funeral, the first main road is College. Just follow that about 3 miles, and on the left side you can find Maggie's Bar and Grill. So with that, we will dismiss you, and now we will reconvene, and you can share your memories and stories